Welcome to Vin and Mike, episode 20.
Hey!
Mike is back, baby.
Mike is back. I missed you.
You were gone so long, I don't even remember what you look like.
I missed that introduction. Vinny, can you believe milestone today? Episode 20, the big 2-0.
Episode 20, yeah. And you know, it was interesting, and we didn't even discuss this at all. We had a lot of hits on episodes yesterday, which for us is usually our slowest day because we're 6 days or 7 days away from when we recorded our last episode.
Right.
And people were flocking to the site, to different episodes, listening to all different things that we've done over the past 6 months almost already. So that was really good to see. You know, and the other thing I meant to tell you, and again, I figured I'd just save it for here. We are in 17 countries now. We've been listened to by 17 different countries, from Sweden to Norway to Belgium to Ireland to India to a bunch of other ones that Israel I saw on there, Canada, of course, and of course the United States is our big one. But it's been great to see, great to hear the feedback from a lot of people that we know, fans of the show. Our Instagram is being looked at by some former athletes that were, interested, actually current athlete, right? Yes, so, yes. All that stuff has come together for us, and really appreciative of our audience out there.
I'm so proud of the show, and I say that every week. And I was actually on vacation. It was just weird for me. First of all, Brandon, thank you so much. Brandon filled in for me last week. He did a phenomenal job. The guy's in college. He has a bright future in this business, no doubt. I like to talk about the Jets over the 5.5. Thank you for bringing that up, you two.
Yeah, we made sure we talked about it.
Detroit Lions and everything. He did a phenomenal job. And something I want to point out is just a couple weeks ago, Vinny got an email. He reached out to this radio station, 90.1 KKFI, which is community radio. And I guess in that month, they did their research and they listened to us and they bought us on. So we could be heard on there in Kansas City. Again, another honor for the program in such a short time. And I guess Vinny and I will be making a little visit there at some point to thank them. Yeah. And just couldn't be happier with the progress and our guests. I look back, from our first guest, one of our close friends who we worked with, Jeff Maspool, really started things out. And since that time, we've had all kinds of guests from friends, former professional athletes, and everyone brings something so great to the table. And it's just been awesome. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we redesigned our logo again. We have a brand new logo. So if you do go to any of our social media outlets, Vin and Mike Podcast is on Instagram. And we have Real Vin and Mike now on Twitter. So you can go either one, which makes you happy. You'll see our nice new logo, which now is my background setting. So I
love it. I love that.
People will see it on Instagram when I post the episode up later today. But before we move on in the show, we got to remember our good friend Viggy Betts over there, because
sure do.
Mike is now brought to you by Viggy Betts, partner of Vin and Mike. You could check out Viggy Betts on Twitter and Instagram at Viggy Betts. DM Viggy Betts now that you're a fan of Vin and Mike, and you receive a 14-day free trial with a new VIP membership. So really good as you start getting deeper into baseball season now. Does a lot of different prop bets with baseball, a lot of runs over, no runs first inning, yes runs first inning. He does all kinds of things like that if you're into it. And then as we start getting closer here, as June is right around the corner and mini camps start opening for football, he'll definitely have a lot of stuff for people, come football season. So it should be a real exciting season for him and for all of us here at Vin and Mike. So with all of that, Mike, the NBA playoffs are in high gear. I mentioned to Brandon last week that you said there was no clear-cut favorite as we went into the playoffs. And we're sitting here with no number one seed in the West, the best team in the NBA out, regular season wise. That's the Phoenix Suns. And a team in the Dallas Mavericks who really look like they were done early. They're in a big trouble now, down 3-0 to the Warriors. And then over in the East, where I think these might have been two of the top three teams in the East this year when you really think about it. I think the East might be rolling a little differently. I think everyone, of course, thought Milwaukee would be in this round. But I think Boston has really shown how good they are as a team. And Miami, who I still think people underrate, are just a lot better than they are and continue to do that. But with all that, a lot of injuries on the Heat and the Celtics going into tonight's game. I want to hear some of your thoughts on that as we move into tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, Vin. So Miami, as I said, from the start of these playoffs, they're number one seed, but they're kind of the team that wasn't really talked about in the East. Everyone was talking about Milwaukee, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Nets. And we talked about that superstar representation. But Miami has a lot of depth. And they showed that the other night without Butler, right? And they were able to beat a Celtics team on their home court. But they've definitely been a one seed that's been under the radar, and they've proven that they can match up with the Celtics really well. And it's been very impressive to watch. And I feel like the last game, the Celtics, when they won on Miami, that was their time to win game 3 and give themselves an advantage. And now I feel that they put themselves in a hole. Realize that they came back against Milwaukee, but Miami is a different team matching up against. And if they keep Tatum, I think last time, what do you have, like 10 points or something the last game?
Yeah, he had that injury also during the game. So I think that definitely hurt him, hurt the team. Just even though Butler got hurt at halftime,
Right.
So you had your two best players on both sides basically out of the game. Smart got hurt, of course. Like I said, just a lot of injuries on both sides of the fence. But I think you make a really good point with Boston. They need Tatum to really put up points where I don't know if Miami necessarily needs Butler if Bam's going to play like that.
No, Bam has been playing so well. Yeah. 31 points last game, so he stepped it up. And that's the thing, Vinny, that your star player with Butler getting hurt, scoring 8 points, other people came through. You had, Max Struss. He had 16 points. PJ Tucker. They have a lot of depth on this Miami team, which was able to, again, match well with the Celtics. They play phenomenal defense. And even though Boston came back, you can't go down 39-18 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
It's just too much
especially in your own court,
Yeah, you can't do that.
You take your crowd out of it early. There's a lot of little things, right? That mental factor that all sports has. And home court, part of that is the loud crowd, being able to get that juice going. And you take your fans out of it, you basically lose that mental edge of things. I think one of the big things for the Celtics that I noticed in both their losses was the first game, Marcus Smart not playing, and then in this last game, him spraining the ankle.
Right.
We'll see if he plays tonight. I don't have any updates yet. So, at the time of the recording here, we're way before the game's playing. So with all that, I think he's a big factor for them. When he played solidly in game 2, they played a lot better defense. They did a lot of good things out there. And then he gets hurt. It just takes a little edge off of them defensively. Robert Williams is a big factor for them as well. They're gonna have a tough time with Bam. I think either way. We'll see if Butler plays tonight. He wants to play. I heard Harrow is definitely out. I know he's definitely out. So Tatum is going to play with the I think he's got like a nerve issue in the shoulder. Yeah. Nothing crazy.
I absolutely agree with you with the Marcus Smart situation. There is definitely a correlation when he plays well. The Celtics usually lean towards winning or being more competitive. So it's crucial for him to have a strong game.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be extremely competitive. And I'm not counting the Celtics. I'm not counting the Celtics out, but this is obviously a must-win tonight. You can't go down 3-1 against the Heat and go back to Miami. So they have to take care of business, right?
Yes.
Charles Barkley made a good point, just going back to the series itself. With Boston losing the last game, even if Miami loses tonight, the pressure is still off of them because they have the home court advantage.
Right.
So they go back to Miami, home court advantage, can win that. Then even lose in Boston, they go back for a game 7. So the pressure is off of them. Not to say they should come in and take care of business tonight, but that was a really crucial game last game.
And if they win tonight, the way you look at it is no matter what happens in game 5 or 6, you still finish your potential season on your home court in a game 7. And it's very difficult to win on another team's home court in a game 7, especially if they have to win 3 in a row, which I think is even a harder task. So I think it's like you said, it's a huge game tonight for Boston, and then game 5 will be even a bigger game for them, moving forward.
Yes.
Where I think in the West, Golden State, really, really, really shows what kind of team they are. I love the job Wiggins has been doing.
We talk about his dunk for a second?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, they had to call that an offensive foul. That's criminal.
Yeah. Well,
that was some dunk.
I just, I look at Dallas and I think it's what's happened is what we thought was going to happen. Just, Luka being Luka and no one else being anything. And I think that's what's happened here.
That's exactly it, Vinny. One person they can only do so much. Luka has 40 points. He's been having a phenomenal playoff, but your other team members have to step up. The other problem is you can't rely on the 3 ball all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been doing. When you're missing threes, you have to have a different strategy to really permeate the court and be able to take more high percentage shots. And they're not doing that.
Yeah. They don't have any real post player. You look at Golden State. Looney can play, inside and do things inside. Draymond can do things in the post.
They don't have a true center. They don't have a true big man.
They don't.
Offensive rebounding and everything.
Yeah, they have a big problem with that matchup. And then you got Clay, you got Steph. Like I said, Wiggins is playing great. You still got Jordan Poole. Their depth is just better than the Mavericks, and that's really what it comes down to. I'd like to see them win one game. It's going to be tough, but
I don't want to see them get swept.
Yeah, I'd like to see them win one more game and then go from there. But I can't see them coming back in this series at all. I would expect Golden State to be out, and I really think Miami's going to take it in the East. As much as I don't like to say that with our good friend Matt listening to the show every week, and he's probably going to be mad at me after I just said that, but that's okay. I just think Miami just matches up a little bit better with Boston, and if I just feel they're just a slight bit better than Boston at this point, and I just like the way Miami's been playing this whole playoff series.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So that's our NBA take. Before we move on, what does Mike do when he is not doing the podcast on Monday nights up in beautiful Connecticut where you were?
Oh, man. It's so awesome there. If for our audience who hasn't been there, Mystic, Connecticut, very quiet, chill place, good restaurants, good bars, and you're by the water. Everything's better by the water. It's just a place. Yeah, my wife and I, we love going hiking, so just walking the trails there. And the best part about this situation right now with working is that you could work remote and still be able to see different sites. So we've been taking advantage of that. But just if you like seafood, if you like a really chill environment, And of course, they have Mystic Pizza, which was a movie. And yes, the pizza does live up to it, Vinny.
Yeah.
I'd be scared to have you there because I think you would eat the whole pie.
Okay.
But
I would only hope.
But no, it was really cool. And then what was awesome was that night when you guys did the podcast, I listened. I was like, wow, it's weird to see Brandon on there with you. But you guys were great together, so it was great to see a guest host and continuing the program. So
yeah, it was definitely different. You know, it was definitely a different feel to the whole thing. I know the one thing for me in Mystic is going to the aquarium. I've been there.
yeah, but they charge an arm and a leg now for that.
Oh, I can only imagine. And then was that the seaport right there?
Yeah.
Do they still have like that old pirate ship out there?
They do. An
Yeah.
old Mystic, yes.
You probably fit in it because you're only 5'2", so that helped you out really well.
Vinny gives me so much crap. First of all, I'm 5'10", maybe even 5'11" on a good day. Same height as him. And he continues to give me shit, and that's why I love this show because we give it back to each other. And it's so good to be back here. I appreciate it.
Good to have you back. So
love being back here.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about real quickly? With the NBA, I was just thinking. I was watching a documentary, probably a month or two ago. The whole Celtics-Lakers rivalry in the '80s.
Yeah.
How great that was with Larry Bird and Magic, and just what that did for the NBA. And we've had conversations in past shows about this, but Magic and Bird were drafted in '79, and at that time, the NBA was really suffering.
Yeah.
Excuse me. As I want to rephrase that.
Yep.
Bird was actually right now.
Yeah.
Fought me 78.
Yeah.
He was actually drafted.
Yeah.
And then he didn't come to play till 79 as well.
Correct.
As Magic.
Yeah.
So imagine a young Magic Johnson. He gets paired up with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I believe the first year they won the championship.
They did.
And then in the 80s, it was really the Lakers and Celtics. You put in Philadelphia there one year in '83.
Yeah.
And then the bad boys really started to, they won it in '89. But aside from that, it was all Celtics and Lakers.
Yeah.
True dynasty. And they really put the NBA back on the map. And then when Jordan came in, of course, in '84, that was huge. And David Stern being a great commissioner. But I look back on that style of basketball. And when a lot of teams now, they don't utilize a center like they used to. And now these big men are taking shots. They have great long-range shots.
Yeah.
But back then, they were really utilized, posting up. And you just wonder how some of them would play today in today's game. But just watching those highlights, and those guys used to foul each other like bad.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no replays back then and what was what. But for our viewers, just check out those Lakers and Celtics games. Check out that whole era of the NBA in the '80s. It was just fun things to watch. And I have to also, people talk about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't win his first championship. It took him 7 years. He entered the league in '84 and won his first in '91. They had to really build up that team, the Bulls. And remember, they had to work their asses off. They had to get past the Lakers. They had to get past the Celtics, the Sixers, the Knicks, the Pistons. They had to take the Pistons off their chair.
Mm-hmm.
Every team back then had some kind of superstar representation. It was so fun to watch. So that's how I got into the NBA. I always was really into. I've always been a diehard Knicks fan, but just really respect the game in general. And now just seeing this year was great, especially because, again, from the beginning of the program, that there was no real favorite. It's been all over the place. A lot of people even said, like, oh, with the Nets-Philly trade, one of these teams are going to the finals, right?
Yeah.
And no one really talked about Miami. And with Phoenix winning 64, 65 games, no one was really – maybe a few people were talking about Golden State, but this is why the NBA has been great this year. You just don't know.
Yeah, I think the uncertainty of sports is what always makes it great. But I think you make a really good point. When you look at the guys that were drafted from 84, 85, 86. The amount of Hall of Famers that were taken in those first rounds, and the players that were taken, and how they propelled their teams in the late 80s, early 90s. And they all wanted to be Jordan, which was a mountain you couldn't overcome. He was really like unbeatable during those 6 championship runs. People don't realize that those 6 teams never played a game 7 in the NBA Finals. So they won all 6 championships without playing a single game 7. So they dominated every single final, no matter which way you look at it. 4-2, dominant. They dominated all those teams, and the guys that they played from, like you said, from Magic, Charles Barkley, Clyde Drexler.
Yep.
Every team, that they took on, they beat some high level guys. And you make a good point with Jordan, 7 years until he won a championship. Remember, Olajuwon didn't win his championship until Jordan retired for the first time 10 years later. So right. It was 94 that he finally won his first.
I have to remember that one.
Yeah.
Knicks.
The Knicks, right? I just watched the 30 for 30, the Reggie Miller Knicks won the whole 95 season. Really, probably the end of the Ewing dynasty, despite them being really good. I think 97 or 98 when Ewing got suspended for running on the court with the whole Alonzo Mourning thing. I forget what year that was, which I thought they were going to be able to give the Bulls a really tough time that year. And I think a lot of people thought that also. That team was built to compete with the Bulls. But, Ewing got suspended because he ran onto the court during the fight. That's when I think that was the first year they put that rule in. You weren't allowed to run on the courts anymore. So guys were just used to doing it. But you go back, that 95 year was probably like that was it, right? Ewing missing that little, drive-in layups that could have tied game 7. It's like those little things. People forget that that game 5 that he made the big shot to propel them to a game 6. So he makes the big shot in game 5, and then of course misses the fingertip roll in there in that game 7. But it was just amazing to see everything that Patrick did. And then I think we talk about it. The supporting cast around him, a lot of those guys are average to below average players, and he never really had a true number 2 superstar along with him. Anthony Mason did little things. Charles Oakley, a good rebounder, defender. John Starks could have a little run, but they never had a number 2 guy. He never had his Pippen. He never Magic, Kareem, Bird, McHale, there was Julius and Malone. There was never a Ewing and another guy. And then when they finally got Allen Houston and Sprewell, he was way past his prime because as we know, he played 4 years of college, came out in 85. He was over 35, when those guys came in. And for a big man center that played a lot of college basketball, remember his Georgetown teams were in 3 national championships, so he played a lot of games, during his college career. Played a lot of games with the Knicks because they made the playoffs a lot and advanced pretty far a lot of time. So at 35 years old, a big difference than it is now for a lot of guys. The technology, the health, and all that is much different now. He was just an older center at that point, and we probably lost that one shot of us really getting to have that opportunity for him. And that's why maybe I lean because we're Knicks fans. I just think he's underrated, Patrick, in what he actually was. And I know championships are important, but if you look at his pure numbers, guys that play with him, there's a lot to that.
Now, Vinny, your analysis is dead on. I don't think he gets the credit that he does. I know he was voted top 50 players.
Yeah.
A lot of people fault him for not winning a championship. and they came very close. But you're right, he didn't have that supporting cast. He didn't have those all-stars.
Nope.
Now, you mentioned 1995. That was the year after they lost to the Pacers. Riley left.
Yep.
And I felt after that, even though Van Gundy was a hell of a coach, actually it was Don Nelson briefly first, then Van Gundy. It was never the same. People started to leave little by little, and he was getting older. But what he did for, I would say, 10, 11 years plus, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal, especially like in the early years, too. I mean, who did he really have? I mean, when he was drafted in 85, everyone thought, oh, he's going to change New York, and New York's going to get right into a playoffs. And it doesn't happen that way. Just what we're talking about Luka with Dallas. One player, it's a team game for a reason, and one person can't do it all.
If you ever want to laugh, look at every first pick, not first round pick, first pick that the Knicks had in every draft from 86 to present. Look at every single first pick they had. Besides Mark Jackson, maybe Rod Strickland, and I'll go to RJ Barrett now because we're still not 100% sure what kind of player is. The rest of them are total garbage. So you're talking 36 years of garbage. 3 guys, and as we know, Mark Jackson's best years were in Indiana. Rod wasn't the kind of guy that could really play with Ewing. He wasn't that kind of player. And RJ Barrett has now been drafted 3 years ago. The rest of them are the worst ever. I mean, it's like who is drafting? I think they could have hired us, and we would have done just as bad.
Were they talking to the Jets organization?
Holy cow! I happen to just look at it because, like I said, every time I see these 30 for 30s and try to figure out like who the Knicks could have had to help them, and I look at these drafts and I'm just like, holy cow! And some of these guys I don't even remember they drafted. I don't even know if some of these guys even played for the team. And I didn't even look at the second picks and so on and so forth. I think Trevor Ariza maybe was one of the other guys who was a journeyman kind of player, but his best years were not with the Knicks. It's like all these guys never really contributed. So you go back all the way to Patrick Ewing until today, and they don't have a single player. There's not a Hall of Famer anywhere. They're Hall of Famers. Carmelo, they made the big trade for. He's the only other Hall of Famer that's been on the team in 36 years. That's nuts.
You know what I think about, Vin? I think about, the Garden. I think about those rafters. And who the hell are they going to retire? Like, who's even close?
No one.
You got
There's
nobody.
not a single guy. There's no one. They've gone through how many coaches in the last 20 years? I mean, it gets really like aggravating around New York. Thank God for baseball. Mets and Yankees playing really well. I know you wanted to talk a little bit Mets baseball, Yankee baseball. So, I feel as much as I'm a Yankee fan, I'm a baseball fan. I like to see good baseball. I think it's great for New York when both the Yankees and Mets are both good. It's a lot of juice around here. People like talking about it. I know the local sports talk radio stations love it because their ratings go up and all that fun stuff that comes along with that. But I feel, this Max Scherzer injury, his torn lat out 2 months basically. DeGrom still coming back from the shoulder injury. I think it's going to catch up with them. Maybe not this week or next week, but I think as we start getting into the summer and it gets hot and guys start getting tired and pitchers start putting innings on their arm that are not used to it, I think we're gonna hit the middle of June and you're gonna see the Mets start slumping a little bit. Now, to say they're gonna drop totally out of the race is ridiculous. I think they have Bassett who's good enough. I like to see them, make a move for a better hitter somewhere. I think they need something. Lindor needs to step up more. But I think the Scherzer injury and the DeGrom injury are going to hurt them until they come back. Then what you worry about is, DeGrom hasn't pitched in a year. He's been hurt for a whole year here. What kind of Jacob DeGrom, is going to come back, and how long is he going to last for you? And I think that's the big thing. Someone made a good point on FAN. I can't remember, WFAN, which is the local here in the New York area. DeGrom is moving in the same pattern as Gooden in different ways, where we might never get to see the full potential of DeGrom because of injury. Of course, we know Doc had his off the field demons, but we're never going to potentially see that full potential. And my brother said to me the other day, this guy is a better pitcher than guys that are in the Hall of Fame, and he's not going to make the Hall of Fame because of what's happening to him. So, it's those are the little things that I think Met fans are concerned about. But at the same time, you get them back, you get them healthy, you can get to October with them. They got a good shot of coming out of the National League. I know the Dodgers will be tough, but when you have two big studs like that, and if Bassett could stay, I think the Mets have a good shot.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're saying that slide just about their history, how the Mets tend to get off to really good starts and then slowly decline.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is a different kind of year, but their pitching's been outstanding. I mean, both I just saw yesterday, Taijuan Walker, phenomenal, 7 innings, 0 runs, and then Edwin Diaz came in and closer. His fastball's phenomenal. The hitting's been there, just smart strategic play. And yes, they have some key injuries, but if they continue to play like this, and the bottom line is you get off to a hot start. I think I was talking to someone. If they just play 500 baseball the rest of the year, even, they have a chance to make the playoffs. So listen, I mean, I've been really impressed with them. And this is a team that, again, the pitching's been so phenomenal that, like a game against the Rockies, you don't need a lot of runs because it's been so good throughout. And I think the Yankees are similar. The pitching's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. The Yankees, run into a little tiny slump here.
That's okay.
The hitting does that, right? They still don't have a consistent two guys like LeMahieu. They have LeMahieu, they don't have that second guy. Someone that like could hit in key situations, not these Hulk power guys like Judge and Stanton and Rizzo. They need maybe Gleyber Torres to start, developing more into a base hit guy, kind of guy, LeMahieu. Aaron Hicks needs to really take that next step up. He has
to.
He's the guy that people are starting to really, really get irritated with around here because they gave him a 7-year deal. I think it was in 2019. So he's basically here to, I think, 2025 when I looked at it.
Right.
So you look at that. He's not someone you really can trade at this point.
No, not with that contract.
Unless you throw him in a package with some of the young kids coming up and try to get somebody that way. But he's gonna need to prove that he can, continue to move forward. Joey Gallo, who we know is what he is. I'm not gonna even go into that whole rant again about him.
Well, I was just gonna say, Vinny, that I think they're getting on Hicks now because Gallo's on the 10-day injured list. So now they're picking on him. Now they have someone else to point the finger at, and rightfully so. He's not been.
Yeah. Well, Gallo got the COVID, so he's out. I think Higashiawa got the COVID also. So, hopefully one of these days, COVID won't be a injured list designation. Hopefully we, as we progress over the next year or so, we learn to live with it better. But I get it. I know how people feel about the whole thing, so I understand. I think it kind of stinks for guys like Gallo, who actually came to the clubhouse the day before, felt terrible. They tested him negative, came into the clubhouse the next day, felt much better, and then they test positive. So, it makes you a little crazy. I would think, even as a baseball player, now you're sitting home because you have to do what you got to do. But it is what it is. But yeah, you're right. They, now that Gallo is sitting, home and not with the team, the next guy up is Hicks. Even though I think he was in that slump beforehand. Yeah. I just don't like when they don't score a lot of runs in games. Especially the way the pitching has been. Right. I still don't think Montgomery's got a win yet, and he's pitched for a team that's 29 wins, already this time of the year. So it's those little things that I look at that are always an issue when it comes to being a fan of New York baseball. I'm guessing. I think if you're not 162-0 in New York, you're not doing something right.
Exactly. That's unfortunately true.
Yeah, I think that's the George Steinbrenner mentality that he brought across to the fan base, and I think we still expect that from his sons his son. I'm sorry, who's more of a businessman, and they'll figure it out. But I will say one more thing, that Aaron Judge, bet on himself. And I think he's going to make about $300 million over the next 8 years, very, very soon, because he's winning that bet right now.
Absolutely.
So, talking about bets, I want to hear. So, I know we talked Saturday afternoon via text and threw out some horse numbers around. And you gave me, I think it was 4 or 5 horses that you were putting in to a trifecta and superfecta box. I think you boxed them, yeah. And I think the top 3 and the top 4 both hit, which is very nice. But at the same time, it didn't really pay what you would think a trifecta and superfecta would pay in a race. So, what were you thinking?
I was thinking, I wish it was the Kentucky Derby.
What was that, $100,000 at that superfecta?
$300,000 for that
superfecta. $300,000.
Well, 2 things that happened. In the Kentucky Derby, you have a field of 21 horses.
Yeah.
In the Preakness, you had a field of 10 or 11?
No, it's 9.
Oh, 9. Excuse me.
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
Even less. And with the decrease in horses, obviously your odds go down. And so I was hoping that the favorite horse would not win, which it didn't. However, it came in second. And because it came in second at 6-5, even with the horse that won and the horses that came in after that, it just didn't do anything for a trifecta or superfecta. It was an extremely low payout. But I could say that I hit the superfecta. I'm still sitting here today on this podcast. Didn't take more time off, so it didn't pay a lot. That's for sure. It was fun to hit though, because I was watching it my neighbors actually, and then I told them I go, Ryan, I need these horses, and it hit, and we start like, no way, and then you see the payout, you're like, okay. I could a couple good lunches this week.
Yeah, it was definitely lower fun than I thought. I honestly thought that would be $1,000 superfecta because of the 2 horse falling, into third, and the favorite didn't win, right? So usually the favorite doesn't win. You're usually okay. You had the 2 horse who I think was 10-1.
Yeah.
And then early voting was 5-1 as the winner. And who was the was it the 4? Was it Lucas's horse that finished 4th?
Who finished 4th?
I think it was Lucas's horse. I think it was the filly.
Okay.
So, which also I think was 5-1. When all said and done. So,
I agree.
I was shocked. I was shocked. I'm guessing a lot of people through the what was it, the 8 horse, right? That was the
that was
5-8. 5824 was the, I think that's
5824. Yep.
Yeah. So the 8, I'm guessing a lot of people just boxed the 8 in a lot of different situations, and that's how it came out that way.
Because I'm looking now. Early voting was 7-2. That Epicenter, again, who obviously they had such high expectations for Epicenter in this race, came in second at 6-5. Creative Minister, which is a 2-horse, 10-1, and then Secret Oath 9-2. So now if this other horse, what a name, Skippy Lawnstocking, it came in 4th at 20-1, maybe it would have had a little bit better, but now Epicenter had to go way down, probably not in the top 3. There would have been a chance, but the payout was still very low.
Yeah, I'm guessing when you say it's 7-2, 6-5, 9-2, those are your. I'm guessing your 3 favorites that were in it. I guess it didn't matter where the 2 finished. Probably needed the 2 to win.
But like my dad said, a win's a win.
Let me. So they were talking. I briefly watched a pre-broadcast of the Preakness, and I know a lot of people that aren't gamblers, that are more traditional horse people, were upset that Rich Strike wasn't in the Preakness to move towards the Triple Crown, and it's going to come back for the Belmont is what I'm hearing, right? So the horse will get the extra 2 weeks off in between, and now I'm hearing early voting. I think that was only his 3rd or 4th race. And they'll probably not race him in the Belmont, and he'll probably go to one of the later races down the road, right? For 3-year-olds, Travers or something like that. What do I was thinking, a lot of people say they should move the Preakness out to like early June, so the horses, have a little more rest and maybe potentially bring them on. But here's what I was thinking. I was thinking if you race in the Kentucky Derby and you do not race in the Preakness, you cannot race in the Belmont. And if you race in the Preakness and you didn't race in the Kentucky Derby or the Belmont, you know what I mean? So my feeling is if you race in the Kentucky Derby,
right, you
need to race all 3 races. If you come in later, like let's say now you're racing the Preakness after the like early voting, that you need to race in the Belmont. Like you need to go into that next race if you win. I think they just got to set some standards, because what happens?
Because there's no standards right now. There's no.
Well, no, yeah. What happens is like an average fan. I would say we're a little above the average fan, right? We watched a lot of Kentucky Derbies, Preaknesses through the years. Pay attention to some of the races that lead up, all that stuff. But the average fan watching on NBC hears the whole Rich Strike thing, 80-1. It's all over the news. It's everywhere. It's the talk of everything. Saturday night, Sunday morning. It's on all the major networks. Monday comes, Good Morning America has the interviews, and you know what I mean. It's everywhere. But now the horse isn't there for the Preakness. You just lose like all that momentum.
You lose the momentum. You lose the ratings. And this is, to me, I agree with you.
And it hurts the sport, right? Like it's not just about the betting part of the sport. It's about the sport in general. People at home hear an 80-1 shot. Oh, this horse is coming back in 2 weeks. I want to watch him now. Now he's not there, and it's like, whatever.
No, to me, I agree with you 100% on this. To me, this is a 3-legged event. Kentucky Derby, Preakness, Belmont. Triple Crown. That to me, that's something that you really want to strive for.
Yeah.
And now it just takes it away.
Yeah.
Like, and
I don't like these horses that race in the Derby and skip the Preakness and come back in the Belmont. So
they have more of an advantage.
Yeah, so let's say Rich Strike did run the Preakness and won. Right? So now he's got 2 legs in. He's going in the 3rd leg, and now all of a sudden you got 4 horses from the Derby that are now back in the Belmont that had 3 weeks off and now sitting there ready to pounce on you.
You know what I was thinking, Vin? We should get Ron on again and get his point of view on that.
Yeah, we can.
I think it would be really interesting to his point of view. But I agree with you because they have to set some standards as far as advantages, right? There's no doubt if you race in the Kentucky Derby and then rest the Preakness and go to the Belmont, you're going to have more of an advantage.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I just think they need to do something. I get it. Horses qualify for these races and are allowed to race. But I think if you're in the 1st leg, you cannot skip the 2nd leg. You have to go all 3 legs.
Yeah, and to your point also, Vinny, that if the horses need rest, maybe give it think about that and say, you know what? The Preakness, give it an extra week. But at least you're not going to throw the enthusiasm of an 80-1 horse. Now it doesn't have the same implications.
No.
Because this was a Cinderella story. And listen, people are still going to watch the Belmont and watch the Cinderella story. But to me, if they would have just said, you know what, with horse racing, just so the horses have enough rest and it's fair, spread it out appropriately for the trainers and the jockeys. But now that the horse is not in it, it's just to me, it's not the same.
Yeah, I don't like moving the legs because that's part of it, right? Like American Pharaoh and Secretariat and Seattle Slew, right? Like they're who they are, justify because of them accomplishing this feat, right? They did it in the set times. They beat all the horses put in front of them. They're just, the top horses in the history of 3-year-old racing, right? They're the super horses of all time. I don't like changing that up because all of a sudden trainers and owners are looking to protect their investments and all that stuff. You take away the part of the Triple Crown that makes it great, right? It's the being able to do those 3 legs in that short time and beating the best horses in front of you. And again, I don't like the unfair advantage of people racing you in the Derby and then skipping the Preakness to race you in the Belmont either.
Listen,
I don't. Maybe that's something you'll have to deal with, but maybe there's another way to figure it out. But at the end of the day, I think if you win any of the legs, I think you got to continue. I think that's something that they, unless the horse physically can't do it, I understand, but they need to figure it out.
100%.
I just think it hurt the sport in general. Yeah. So that was it. That's all I got on that. We'll talk Belmont in a couple of weeks, and we'll see who's in it. When Rich Strike he'll be an interesting horse because of his late speed and that 1.5 miles and that humongous stretch. I think that'll be very interesting to see if he can come that far from behind and if he has the ability over that extra 1/4 mile to move on that and see and we might get more horses in the Belmont than we got in the Preakness because of the amount of horses I think that skip the Preakness, the ones that think they could still win and all that. I don't know if we'll see Epicenter, who's finished second in the Derby and second in the Preakness. I don't know if we'll see him in the Belmont. I like to see him.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
I think he's been the best horse out of them all because he's raced in both races, finished second in both races. So we'll see if he'll come for the Belmont. But we'll talk about that at a different time. I want to get your thoughts. So let's turn to our favorite sport, NFL. I just want to get some of your thoughts on this quarterback situation still. There's a lot going on. I heard some stuff about Watson and him going through potentially the whole thing on Real Sports now might be coming out on the whole situation that they're interviewing people. And as we know, Real Sports as a new sports news program is very well respected. Brian Gumbel's been doing it for a long time. He's very well respected in the field. The reporters that they have are top-notch reporters that do everything. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with out of that. And then out of that, how it impacts his status moving into next season. And then what does Cleveland do if Watson gets suspended, let's just say for the whole season? And they still got Baker Mayfield sitting there who seems like he doesn't want to even play for them. What do they do? Do they tell Baker, you're going to have to play for us? Or are they going to, do something else? What do you think?
I think that it's option B. I think they're going to have to do something else. He obviously doesn't want to be there at all.
Yeah.
And I think they have to, find
Jacoby Brissett, baby.
Mike White is available.
Mike White. Jimmy G gets traded to Cleveland.
No, I really do. In all seriousness, I think it's just not there for him, Baker Mayfield. And when he was first drafted, there was so much promise and aspirations, and he doesn't want to be there. So I think if you're the organization, you really have to think about that. What if? You don't want to get in that situation.
Yeah.
So really think about the QBs that are out there that do want a chance that you give an opportunity to. So
I'm still amazed at that draft because I thought Cleveland was going to take Sam Darnold, and I thought the Jets, who had the third pick after Barkley went to the Giants, I thought that would have been Mayfield to the Jets. It was opposite, of course, and then of course, neither one of them are working out. Darnold's long gone from the Jets now, and Mayfield actually might be competing with Darnold. I heard Carolina still might be interested in Baker, which is just like unbelievable when you think about it. But yeah, it's just a very interesting situation.
There is.
We're getting close to mini camps opening. We got some OTAs going on, which are voluntary, right? So if you have the ability and you want to go to the voluntary mini camps for your teams, they're opening up. And one quarterback decided he's not going to the volunteer OTAs, and that's Kyler Murray, who we talked about on previous shows. In that, he put out those big tweets and everything about everything and all the different stuff that he deleted all his Arizona stuff, and there's been guys that used to play with him on other podcasts says that he doesn't want to be there because of the culture of the team. He wants to be out of there. I think he's still playing himself, of course, for a long contract. I think that's really what it comes down to. His fifth-year option was picked up, which he'll get $29 million is what I read next year. But of course, these guys want the Deshaun Watson contract now, right? They want a lot of guaranteed money. I don't know. I look at Kyler Murray and I don't like the way his seasons go as time goes on. I think he gets off to great starts. Those teams get off to great starts, and they get about halfway in the season, and you're right, he just like falls off the cliff. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's teams catch up with the way they're doing things, if it's the play calling that they're calling the same plays. Is it him in his play, or is it the injuries to
Hopkins?
Right, or is it a little bit of everything? Which you need to figure it out, because you need to win games in December and January in the NFL. Those are the really important times of the year to win games. You need to of course win your early season games, but I wouldn't trade for him. I just wouldn't. And I just, and if I was going to trade for him, I'm not giving up a first round pick for him at this point. I just don't feel he's worth it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous for a first round pick. And I think there's a maturity issue too, Vinny. He already had bad press with the Instagram and Twitter, and now by opting out of the training camp, it's just hurting him and the fans. Now, luckily, he doesn't play in New York where the fans would throw shit at you for doing something like that. Arizona is a little more lenient, but no, you're just losing credibility. And it's just, again, I understand he may have some unhappiness wherever that's coming from, but you have to be a professional. And I feel like there's just a certain trend that's going that's not favorable to him right now. So I don't know. I would not give up a first round pick, and I would just keep things as is, and maybe things could get better over there. So
Yeah.
yes,
I
they have the
don't
right
know.
team and the right coaching around him to make him successful.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's what they're planning for, to get poor Kingsbury, canned from his job and move forward. Did you hear anything about this Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher? Nick Saban accusing Jimbo Fisher of stealing all the recruits this year because the name, what is that? The NILs, your name, or NLIs, or whatever that's called, name, image, likeness. I think it's NILs, name, image, likeness. Now you can get paid, right, for that stuff. I'm hearing some of these guys are getting paid $3-4 million for different sponsorships, and Saban, I think, lost his mind that Texas A&M is able to produce this money for these guys and getting some of the top recruits, and basically saying that Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M paid for every player they recruited this year. And Jimbo Fisher basically lost his mind and said, we do things the right way here, Texas. But at the same time, Fisher was an assistant with Saban's at LSU. I mean, these guys know each other for a long time.
So why is this all coming out?
So I just think Nick Saban's angry that he can't get top recruits anymore.
Yeah, maybe. So he had to point the finger.
Yeah, so that's it. But I heard 25 of the Alabama players last year were all making over $1 million in NIL money.
Wow.
So again, I don't know how that all works. We talked about it for a long time, that we felt college guys should get paid for certain things, but this seems like these guys are getting paid money that I would just stay in college and not even come to the NFL. I would ask, can I do a 6th year of college? Am I still eligible?
Right.
Yeah. Then the other thing I was thinking is, you get all this money while you're in college. Does it carry over to the NFL? Right? So let's just say Dunkin' Donuts is paying me, $2 million a year to drink a colada, right? And I'm on all these Dunkin' commercials throughout the area. Now I get drafted by the Cleveland Browns. And I was at Alabama. Does Dunkin' still pay me my $2 million a year now for being on the Cleveland Browns, or does that end, in college? I mean, as a player, I would think as like me as a player, I would just say, the contract ends in college, because when you go to the NFL, those $2 million incentive deals become $200 million incentive deals. But I just think it's amazing the amount of money these guys are getting paid.
Maybe Dunkin' Donuts will come to us, Vinny. Vinny, drink a Coolada. We'll pay you $100.
Can you eat a Carvel ice cream while you're on the air and tell us how good it is?
On that note, everybody,
I like my crunchies and my Carvel cake.
I just want to say on a side note, again, special episode today, number 20. Thank you for all your support, listening to us. It's been just an amazing journey, and we're just getting started. So you see, we got the new logo. We're on Instagram, Vin and Mike Podcast. Anytime you type us in Google, we're pretty much everywhere now where you can listen to us. And as Vinny said earlier in the program, we're 17 different countries now, and just listen to all over. So we're glad that you're enjoying us.
Yeah, and we're happy to be out in Kansas City. KKFI out there. Our good friend Bob Kendrick. I don't know if people know who Bob is. Bob is a friend of mine. He is the president of the Negro Leagues Museum, which is in Kansas City. I'm going to try to get him on one of these days. We'll talk real old school baseball. He talks Henry Aaron and Willie Mays coming up through there, even Jackie Robinson coming through there, and Buck O'Neill. He goes into all that, and Monty Irvin. He really gives you a real good history on the Negro Leagues back in the 40s and in the 50s, and then how it translated into Major League Baseball. And he'll tell you some players you never heard of, and how great it was, and a lot of stuff. So we'll definitely try to get Bob on. Maybe we can make a trip out there and talk to Bob, in the actual museum, and have our KKFI team out there maybe come and talk with us a little bit and have a lot of fun. But we'll wait and see on all that. That's just me thinking out loud on our podcast. So
I like your thinking. Keep thinking. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
Good night.